Elsie. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
Good, thank you. So we were speaking about you moved here. First, initially, before moving here, you started teaching in 1958 at George Street School. Would you like to tell us about that?
Oh, yes, I had taught before that, before coming to Aurora to teach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, George Street was the first new school that Aurora built. At least I know I'm talking to about not the Catholic, but the public school system. Yeah. I don't know about the other system. Maybe they needed new schools before this, but George Street was desperately needed here because Wells Street was overflowing. And while the new school was in process of being built, they still had a few classes at the old Church Street School, which is now the Cultural Center. So in March that year, 4 classrooms in the kindergarten were ready for use. Mm-hmm. And so they moved from that Church Street School right away quickly to the new school. And then 4 more classrooms were to be ready by September. And they weren't quite ready. So, but the children were, and the teachers were. 4 of us were hired for that time: Mary Gilbert, Eleanor Heckling, Ed Griffith, and myself. And the class weren't ready. So we were on split shifts for about 5 or 6 weeks until they were ready. And then, of course, we moved in quickly.
And you had said that you didn't have furniture at first.
3 of the new rooms, their furniture was delivered as soon as the classroom was ready. But mine was, for some reason, my furniture didn't arrive for another week, maybe 2 weeks. I've just forgotten exactly how long, somewhere in that line. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I had 39 children, and they brought in library tables and small kindergarten chairs in order to accommodate that many children.
Mm-hmm. And you said you also, at first, there was only 2 classrooms ready. You had to split shifts to work.
Yes, I did say that. Yeah.
And and then you also brought your daughter to school with you?
I did because, I was traveling a distance, and it would have meant an extra long day for someone else to take care of her. And she's good company. And she could read already, so she came to school with me. Mm-hmm. And that was nice, and therefore she was able to go home with me. Yes. And because we were out of Aurora at that time, we paid for Janice to come to Aurora, and they paid me to come to Aurora. At any rate, it was $30 a month, and we continued to pay that throughout her public school education. But when she finished grade 8, and wanted to go to high school here, of course, it was a firm rule that nobody out of the town was allowed to come, whether or pay or not. Yeah. So we moved to Aurora then, and she attended Williams High School for her education.
So how was that move? Was it a big transition for you, or for your family, or was it kind of natural?
Well, it was interesting. It saved a lot of time for me, over an hour a day, because it was somewhat over the half hour each way. Well, that'd be an hour morning and night then, wouldn't it? Yes. Yeah. So that was very good. Winter roads were not the best. We had one huge hill, the 6th hill there, that if you could get a run at it, you'd get up. But if there were other cars sitting this way, it was tricky. One day I came on, I couldn't get my car up the hill because of this, and I parked off the road, well off the road, and a school bus came along. We flagged down the school bus, and he brought us both to Aurora. Yeah. And then I made some phone calls to get home again. So we had some adventures on the way. Yeah. But it was nice to be settled in Aurora and not have that worry. Mm-hmm. Concerned about getting there each morning.
Yeah, that must have made things easier.
And we had Mr. George Billings was the principal when I came.
Okay.
A marvelous person to begin my teaching career in Aurora with George Billings as principal. We had some good principals after that too. He moved on to open Regency Acres School.
Okay.
I'll tell you a funny story, sure, if I may.
Yeah.
The next principal we had, George Billings was there the 1 year, moved on to Regency. We had another principal, he stayed 2 years, and he moved on to open Aurora Heights Public School. And then another man came, and he stayed for 11 years. And when on his going away party, I don't know how it happened, but anyway, I was to give his leaving address to him for his years of dedication to George Street School. And he was a good sport, so it was all right for me to say, it took us 1 year to get Mr. Billings trained to open the school. It took us 2 years to get the next man trained for Regency, but it took us 11 years to get you trained. and it was a joke, and he took it as a joke, and we all had a good laugh.
It was a good joke.
He was a very good man to work with.
That's good. And you were very involved in the school aside from just teaching. You talked about were involved in music and the choir. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yes. Mr. Eldon Harris was the master teacher of music, and he was very supportive in the music work that I was doing, and helped me to learn how to train choirs. He had an excellent record with music festivals all around, and very perfectionist, very much a perfectionist, so I learned a lot from him. And eventually I took the choirs to music festivals on my own. I have a nice little pile of first standings, and the rest are either second or third, always in the standing, which was a nice feeling. And I think the children enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
I often had remarks about their music. And we had the Orff instruments in the school too, which were very, very good. We got involved in the symphony orchestra. One of our field trips was to Massey Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really exciting. For me too, it was just marvelous.
You were telling me about, can you tell us about the student you said with the violin and what he does now?
Well, Williams High School was in the process of getting new instruments for their orchestras or their bands, whatever. And they invited any public schools who might want to make any use of the instruments they were discarding could come and just get them. Mm-hmm. So because we were talking about the symphony orchestra, and it's all very well to see a picture of a violin, but it's much more interesting to see it, to hold it, to feel the strings on the violin, which are not metal, they're horsehair, I think. Yeah. I think so. And even though this violin was in I did go and get one, and it was in such bad shape that they said it couldn't be tuned, and as far as I was concerned, it couldn't be tuned. But Joey picked up this instrument on his own time after school, recess, or whenever he showed an interest. And before long, even though this instrument was not legally tuned, he was playing tunes on it. He had a marvelous ear for music. Sometimes when I would play a duet on the piano, the name escapes me, and I had forgotten all about it, but he reminded me many years later that we used to play this duet on the piano at school. He played at a parents' night also. He still makes his living with his violin today. He was much a better music student. If you can make your living at it,
you've got to be good.
He has a marvelous ear. He played just for a family group at my husband's birthday party, just out of the kindness of his heart to provide a little bit of entertainment. Yeah. And I was so pleased to have him.
That's excellent. And You brought a lot more things into the school, your own interests and things. You were telling me about geology and the precious stones, semi-precious stones.
Yeah.
You said, can you tell us about the Mother's Day craft? I love that.
Oh, it's for Christmas, that's right.
For Christmas?
I'm quite an interest. In fact, our first trip out west, I collected so many stones. We traveled with my brother and his wife and my husband and I had collected so many stones that the vehicle belonged to my brother. And you know, brothers can say these things. It's either the stones or you. We can't have any more. That's how many I had. And of course, that was my first really getting into collecting. And later on, I became a little more discerning. And we found sources of jade in BC and garnets on a trip down the coast of BC, and amethyst north of Lake Superior, and Parsville, Nova Scotia. But my favorite are the amethysts that you can find, and you can go into mines there and buy the amethyst. What else? Agate, you can find agate on any beach on Georgian Bay, many other areas too. It's quite common, but quite beautiful when it's cut or polished. At any rate, one of the projects, once I got into this rock collecting, I bought this package of stones, different colors and different shapes, just raw, and brought enough for the children, each child to pick out their own. They were to identify it and measure it, look at the shape and the color and so on. And then we put it into a rock tumbler with the grit that needs to go in the first level. And it runs for at least a week. I'm not sure of the time right now. It's been some time. So at the end of that time, we opened it up, pulled the stones out of this gritty water, and they had to find their own stone. It's changed a little bit, but quite identifiable still if they looked and remembered. We wrote it down, of course, so they had some guidelines. And they found their own stone and noticed the changes and noted those changes, and we put it back in and put the next type of grit in with it and let it run for another week or so. And then when it comes out this time, you just wash it well. It usually has a really nice shine by now. And they were quite pleased with their stones. So we had the little clasp, not really a clasp, but is it something that a little like a claw that fits over the top of the stone. Had some parental help. They came in and helped glue these on the stones that each child had, and they brought their own little chain. And they had lovely, lovely gifts for Mother for Christmas. And they were so enthused. I remember one girl saying, "Oh, I'm going to be a geologist." That was one of my most exciting ones. I was excited about doing this too. I've polished quite a few. I have a rock saw.
Oh, wow.
And I've cut a number. It's fairly involved. I needed my husband to set it up, and you need kerosene in it. It's definitely an outdoor project to cut rocks with a saw. It's a lengthy process too, but fascinating. You find this dull-looking rock, and there's maybe something in it, and you think there's something that you can see that indicates there's something more interesting inside. So you cut it, and there you can see. And some of them, you know, have you ever seen a geode?
No.
And they're rocks. I've seen some about this size, and on the outside they look perfectly like any old rock.
Yeah.
And inside there, it's like a jewel box. It's just all these crystals there, different colors. You often see these in museums, etc., on display, and you can see all that in that rock. It really gets you excited.
No, they sound beautiful.
Yes.
One of the things you really found important were the connections you had with your students even today and later on in life.
Oh,
you had some stories
the joy
about
of
that.
my life.
Yes.
Joy of my life when they come to visit or who keep in contact with me in other ways. This past summer I had a young man. I call them boys really because the last time I saw him he was a boy. From Edmonton. He was there, and he came driving up the road. I didn't know. I knew I should know the face. He parked up and walked back. I had a visitor in my driveway, and we had to visit there because she's disabled and couldn't get up my stairs.
Okay.
So she came, and so I was there with she and her driver, having this nice visit. And he came along. I came up the driveway, and I knew who he was, but the name escaped me. But one word, and I knew it right away, quickly. And our visit with my disabled friend was just finishing anyway, so he stayed and talked for a bit, and I thought, well, maybe you'd like to come in for a cup of coffee. Well, yes, he did, and he stayed for 2 hours, and we had this lovely conversation. He had just recently become a grandfather. It makes me feel very old, but just the same, it was so lovely to see him. Yes, another one that I've kept in touch with at Christmas time every year since, and I've been retired for a little over 20 years. So I get a Christmas card from her and a letter telling me what she's doing and what her children are doing. And one day I'm going to go drive down to have a visit with her. Oh, at our 50th wedding anniversary, she came to the anniversary celebration, and she came with her mother and her daughter. And she said she wanted especially to bring her daughter because her daughter was now 10 years old, and that was how old she was when she was in my class. So these are the things that make my life.
You said one's even your neighbor now.
Yes, 3 doors down. Very nice young man. Ages are relative these days. At any rate, once upon a time, he was in my kindergarten class. So it's a delight to have him as a neighbor too.
That's wonderful.
A good neighbor.
That's excellent. And
can I tell you about a little bit about how teaching has evolved?
Sure.
When I first started, actually I was very young. I was only 18 when I started to teach, and I wasn't even thinking about marriage. But I soon learned, over a couple of years, that if you were married, once you were married, you were not expected to stay as a teacher. That changed. That soon changed because still here in the early 50s, there was a teacher shortage. We lost a lot of people in the war, a lot of good prospects for teachers, and so on. So they were pretty well forced to give teachers a chance, married women teachers a chance. My sister was the first married woman in Brampton who was hired in 1953. There was still a little bit of disapproval when I went back to teach after my daughter was born. However, that changed when I applied in Aurora. There was no question whatsoever. I was married and had a child, and let me think of those 4 people who were hired. All of us were married, so that's a good thought about Aurora's hiring practices.
Yeah.
What else was I telling you about?
Well, one of the things you really wanted us to talk about were the arrangement at the school and how they treated the handicapped children who came to your school.
Oh, well, that was just an aside.
Yeah, okay.
But it was a feeling in George Street School. It was a marvelous school to teach. I think it was marvelous because of the people on the staff and the good children who came to that school, well-mannered, caring kids. And occasionally we would get a child. We had a special ed class too. And I remember one in particular who hadn't been able to come to school for some time and finally was getting physically and probably mentally ready to attend school too. And he came by bus, and he was very, very insecure, and he would get upset as time went on during the day, and he'd stand at the window say, "Is the bus coming?" And everybody felt so concerned about him. The whole student body, as well as the whole staff, seemed to gather around a child like this. It wasn't just this particular one. His name escapes me right now too. I remember another older girl coming in from the group home on Young Street there. And again, she was older and she'd had many, I guess, rough experiences. And again, the whole school just kind of put their loving arms around them. And if they were able to stay for a year, we often made quite a big difference in their lives with the self-confidence and some little bit better ideas about caring for others and consideration for others and so on. It was a great school to teach at for that reason.
That's wonderful. That's great. I don't have any other notes here, I think, of things we had talked about. Is there anything else you would like to mention?
Well, I told you, in my grade 5-6 class, we wrote a column for the Aurora Banner.
Oh.
Every week. And I kept a copy of some. I intended to pick out one that I thought was worth reading, but they're just in order here.
Oh, wow.
They're just, in the order that they were published, I think. The first one starts with back to school specials, and each week they were written by different students, and their names, I'm sure, will be, if they listen to this program, maybe they know that I still have them. This first one was written by Sandra Linton and Bridget Stokeland, Patty Shea and Paula Moore, and Karen Branch. Oh, here's Stephen Falk down at the bottom here too. And Brian McCutcheon and Stephen Falk. So they each had a little bit to put into the paper. And it varied as we went along. Just 2 people in this one, which would be the second week of school. And it wasn't just, although these children were from my class, they wrote about what was going on in the school.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was the message for parents on the end of it, and so on.
That's great.
Occasionally they'd have a poem that they thought that they'd written themselves, or just pick out a poem that they really, really liked, and it was published. This one from Stephen says, George Street School is a lively, ball-kicking, pencil-breaking bunch of kids that blend with the teachers. Stephen Fall. Oh dear. This one, Bridget Stokeland says, school was exciting for the first 10 minutes. Sandra Linton said, this is the first day of school in September. Looking forward to school? Well, it's here, and that's all there is to it. George Street School consists of 9 classrooms from primary to junior level. The athletic and academic activities are underway and are just what the students are looking forward to. There are others here about great happenings in stage 3. Whether I could find one of these poems that they put in. Anyway, there's a lot of them here. If any of these students are listening, I have the whole year's copy for your marvelous newspaper reports.
Sure, they love to see their names in print.
Yeah, I would think so. I love to read these. Brings back memories of all the good things that went on there at the school. The one other one is a project where the children went out from the school to different businesses around Aurora. I think they were there each day for a week. And this one is one student who visited Aurora Home Hardware. Jamie Patrick was the student, and he's shown with, he's showing Doreen Barfett, the owner of Home Hardware, one of the owners rather, a copy of the banner to see if she wants to advertise this week. Jamie was accompanied by the ad woman, Marg Bluen, from the Aurora Banner. Another picture shows grade 6 student Brenda Hammond, and she's helping in his garden center. This one we have Brenda Defoe and Debbie Patchell, They're matching up the color chips at Aurora Decorating Center. I came back to school exhausted but enthusiastic. Sandra Lincoln here with, who is she? Gerald Elmer. And Stuart Allen and Danny Marchmont at Omar's Shopping Center, still in operation. And Kim Williams and Donnie Sanderson and Faye Payment at the Trio Restaurant, getting some tips from Telly Saspos. I don't know. And Kim Williams here with Mark Baggett, and they're examining a camera in the while we learn about camera room procedure from the banner Millie the Moon. So those are the ones. Oh no, we have two more here. I have to mention Stephen Falk and Scott Jones, and they're at the Canadian Tire pit stop, let's put it that way. They pumped gas and cleaned windows, much to the surprise of motorists who drove in. It was a beautiful, exhausted, enthusiastic after a week on the town. Just one of the projects that went on at George Street School.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Elsie.
It was my pleasure, because it's
I hope
a lot
some
of good memories.
Yes, and I hope some of your past students get to see this and realize.
And come back and see me.
Yes,
Yes.
send a message out.
I'm still in the same place.